Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today we're going to be doing a series on the MiSter FPGA DE10 Nano project. What I'm going to be doing today is recapping all of the hardware developments on MiSter FPGA in 2024. Because it used to be that you had one source for Terasic DE10 Nano boards, and now we have two clones on the market, a bunch of add-on boards, and a bunch of different consoles made from MiSter. So if you're thinking about picking up a second MiSter or maybe joining the club for the first time, I'm going to break down every single option you have currently available, giving you an idea of what hardware you might want to run in the future. Because the only wrong way to play MiSter FPGA is to not play it in the first place. There's so many new users that makes me so happy. A lot more tutorials need to be made, but I figure we start with hardware here. Let's kick it off with Taki Udon's MiSter Pi. This is definitely the hot new news in MiSter for fall of 2024. He had been talking about and promising a cloned MiSter FPGA full triple stack for under $165 all spring and summer long, and he 100% delivered with his company. And I know right now supply on these is very constrained. The first two batches of sales have completely sold out within like 3 or 4 minutes, so it might be a little difficult to actually get your hands on one of these for the rest of 2024. And it definitely is an awesome option. I've done a lot of testing on it. I'll leave some links in the video below to those video tests, and this thing has just absolutely performed exactly the same way that a Terasic made DE10 Nano board would. And that is great because it's going to get a lot more people into the hobby, getting you guys playing MiSter FPGA for under $200. It's one of those things, it might take 6 months, it might take a year for the stock to normalize, but it definitely is something you should keep your eyes on if you're thinking about making your first MiSter FPGA or you're thinking about expanding your collection. Because I went over a full build guide on this, all of the analog boards, all of the RAM capabilities, all of the USB hubs, everything just worked exactly as expected, and that is always awesome. This board can do either single RAM with analog video out, or can do dual RAM without that analog video connection being up there. So it is a very versatile new design based on the 9.2 IO boards that Serg posted up on GitHub. This has absolutely everything you need if you want to build a MiSter FPGA, and it even has this nice 4-pin header on the USB board, so you don't have to have any dongles hanging off the side compared to some of the older designs. And again, I went through this thing comprehensively, not trying to find a problem to point it out, but just to make sure that I could easily recommend it to you guys. And in every single video review I have talked about, this thing just is the real deal. It does everything a MiSter FPGA could and more. And you'll see those little 4-pin headers there. This is a very easy thing to build, and again, it's going to get you there and under $200 with shipping included once you add that on. And everything from the RAM test speed-wise that I have done have just been exactly what I would expect out of a 128 megabyte module for MiSter FPGA RAM. Runs the Sega Saturn core great, and that is the one core that can be a little bit touchy on memory timings and speeds. So really there's nothing about this system that I could critique whatsoever outside of, and this is not a critique, it's just popular. It's going to be a little bit difficult for you to get a hold of one in the next couple months at least. But when there is a new batch of orders going up, I'll definitely update you guys in a video or at least a Twitter post giving the viewers an indication that the ordering is coming soon. I did hear that if you want to make an account on there, don't save your address, that throws an error up, so maybe just add your address when you order next time. We're moving from Taki Udon over to MiSter Addons. He has had so many fun new boards released this summer, IO Direct as well as the Analog Pro board, and I definitely built myself an analog triple stack just to kind of swap out my boards to give myself an even better experience on my PVM that I keep next to me in my studio. And MiSter Addons is always coming up with new board designs, kind of expanding upon what MiSter FPGA can do, and I've used his boards exclusively since I started covering MiSter FPGA on the channel. They have been rock solid stable, so if you're looking for a triple stack, maybe with something different on the top, MiSter Addons definitely has you covered. And a few months ago, I will leave a link to that in the description below, I did a review of the Analog Pro, and it's now my go-to IO board for my PVM. And I've either already shown you or will be showing you shortly the IO Direct, which lets you do a dual RAM build as well as use the Saturn mini DIN connection on the top with a direct video adapter to get all of the different video signals you could possibly want out of MiSter FPGA. I'm showing you an old triple stack right here just to kind of explain how things work. And the best part is, on these new boards there's also a soft power switch and a USB-C power input. So now, as opposed to having an inline switch where you toggle something to turn your MiSter FPGA on, you now have a button, press it and it turns on, press it and it turns off, and honestly, it's a feature I didn't know I needed, but it's It's now one of my favorite features of MiSTer FPGA with the MiSTer add-on boards. And how this works is it's basically going to do direct video into the board, and then you have that Saturn mini DIN connector right there, and MiSTer Addons is also going to have some cables available if you need to pick some up, but because it is Saturn mini DIN, if you have something you will be fine as well. And this is a super intelligent design because you're going to get RGB out of that port, you're going to get component out of that port, you're going to get S-video out of that port, and you're even going to be able to get composite out of the port. The only thing it will not do is something like an RF signal. You'll have to have an adapter for that, but this basically takes down a lot of the accessory boards we've used for MiSTer FPGA to get something like S-video or composite out to a CRT television, and it comes with full 24-bit color support for the cores that have that enabled, so you're going to get an even better image with reduced color banding there. And the way this works is you just put an HDMI to HDMI male adapter in between the two boards, you turn direct video mode on, and now you have dual RAM as well as that analog active on the mini DIN port, and you have every single feature you could possibly want for MiSTer FPGA. So it's really fun to see all of these different boards accessory wise come out. And I checked out MiSTer Addons' new cables. Right here you have a Saturn mini DIN to SCART, that way I can put it into my RetroTink if I want to, or into my PVM, and everything has just been great. So if you already have a MiSTer FPGA, you're thinking maybe you want to build your own triple stack and want to go a little bit more high end or a little bit more fancy with the top IO boards, these are some awesome new additions to the MiSTer hardware lineup in 2024, and I can't wait to see what MiSTer Addons has planned next, because I know he's got something good in the works. Speaking of MiSTer Addons though, but the arcade side of things, I just recently did a review of the MiSTercade version 2.0. This is for people that have arcade cabinets in their lives and they want to put a MiSTer FPGA into that arcade cabinet and still use their harnesses, their monitor, and basically treat MiSTer FPGA like it is a comprehensive multi-arcade board setup, because with these boards that's exactly what it is. And this is definitely a specialty product. You're going to know if you need it and you're going to know if you don't need it, but for the people that want to do arcade MiSTer FPGA at home in a full cabinet setup, this is absolutely my favorite product to do that. And big thanks to Dorfus for sending me some clips of his arcade cabinet in his garage. He uses the original MiSTercade V1.0, but he's definitely going to upgrade after I told him how good this is. And this just has absolutely everything you could possibly need when it comes to hooking up MiSTer into an arcade cabinet, because it has that JAMMA edge on the side, but you're still going to have the other inputs. So if you want to do 31 kilohertz, if you have a tri-sync monitor, you'll have your video out there as well. But it is just that JAMMA edge. We have pin headers for controls. You can do controls over the JAMMA edge. You can get controls into the USB hub. You really can set this up however you want to. It has basically Swiss Army knife versatility to give you every single tool to get the setup you want out. And that is great because every single person's arcade cabinet setup is going to vary, but whatever it is you're running in your cabinet, monitor wise, control wise, you're going to find a way to hook it up to the MiSTercade version 2. You're even going to have your analog video out in case you want to go that way versus bringing the signal over the JAMMA edge. So that is a really nice touch, and as I said in the original preview video, this edge is beveled perfectly, so 15 out of 10 marks on that. You can even run this on a super gun. You really wouldn't want to do that. This is intended for cabinets, but it is an option in case you have a super gun setup now, want to pick it up because you know you're getting an arcade cabinet soon and you want to get that hardware on your table ready to go when you do. It is compatible with pretty much every super gun that I have taken a look at here, and this is just again such an awesome device because a lot of people love putting MiSTer FPGA in their arcade cabinets, and it can be a little bit of a chore if you try to wire it up yourself. MiSTer Addons even sells this remote control that hooks up into the MiSTercade, so you have a lot of the different options outside of the cabinet wherever you want to put it versus having to reach into the control panel and configure the buttons there. And you also get a third and fourth player USB encoder, that way you can do 4-player games and basically inject your controls in via these bare pin headers here and then go over to USB. So if you want to do a 4-player cabinet, probably a rare build, but someone's going to want to do it, you have the option to do that as well. And that's why MiSTercade version 2 is such a great device. It gives you options for absolutely everything. No matter what sort of arcade cabinet you have, whatever your control setup is, you're going to find a way to plug it into the MiSTercade, and that's definitely something that's going to streamline your process, because trust me, I know a lot about arcade wiring and it's always a pain. Now moving over into the more pre-built premium side of things, I did a video review on this about 3 months ago, Koala Co.'s M3 Marsupial Multisystem FPGA. It is a mouthful to say, and I think I even missed a word there, but honestly, I know a lot of people bought one of these after I did the video. I've gotten a lot of feedback and everyone's been very happy with it. This is what you get when you just want to open a box and pretend that you're buying a real original console like a PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, or Nintendo Switch. It comes in a great case, everything you would possibly need in your MiSter FPGA's already been assembled. You even get a controller in the box and some other things like tap-to integration with some cards. So if you're just looking to get into the MiSter FPGA ecosystem and you want pure plug and play, this is something you should definitely look towards, and I will leave a link in the description below for this one as well, because this is basically MiSter FPGA on easy mode. Plug in the power, plug in the HDMI, set up your controls, and now you're just playing this thing like you're playing any other console out there without having to do any of the build guide stuff. And trust me, I get it, MiSter FPGA isn't the hardest thing in the world to assemble, but for those of you out there that really don't feel comfortable handling PCBs or building a triple stack, these things do exist, and this one I highly recommend. I even did a teardown of it, and I'll find that link in the description below, where you can see all of the different features, the tap-to integration, the multi-system board, the SD card extension, which you can take out if you're not into it, and this is fully loaded. There is no feature that MiSter FPGA offers that this thing doesn't have built in outside of MIDI support, and that's because that's a Raspberry Pi module, something additional outside of the MiSter FPGA ecosystem that does work with it. But it was really fun reviewing this. I've been using it for different videos on the channel to showcase it, and like I said, I know some of you don't want to build anything. That's totally fine, even if I think MiSter FPGA is probably a 3 out of 10 on the difficulty scale as far as building your own is concerned. For some people out there, you either don't have the time, the energy, you feel like you don't have the skill, or you just don't have the will to do it yourself. The marsupial system is definitely something you should look for, and the fact that it even comes with a controller, power supply, and everything else you need in the box is a 10 out of 10 touch as far as you just want to play MiSter FPGA and you don't want to be bothered to do anything else other than plug it into your TV and your wall. This is definitely the de facto go-to system in my opinion for that. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below about this one, and let me know if you feel comfortable building a MiSter FPGA or not if you don't own one, because I'm always curious to hear what people are comfortable with. But if you don't want to touch bare boards, if you don't want to order multiple parts, if you just want to make one transaction, receive a box, and start playing everything you could possibly want on MiSter FPGA without having to put in any work, the M3 Marsupial MiSter FPGA Multisystem is definitely an option for you. Let's move back over to the clone space to close out the video and talk about the QMTech MiSter FPGA clone boards. This is including the Terasic DE10 Nano. When I first talked about it, I said while it did function perfectly fine as a MiSter, its lack of accessory boards really made it hard to recommend. But a few weeks ago, I showed you a new build with Antonio Valena's new I/O and USB hub combo board, and it completely changed the way I interact with the QMTech clone, and it's been a good satisfying experience from there. And this has the 128 megabytes of RAM soldered in on the bottom of the board versus actually being on the pin headers. It's a really interesting design, and as far as its functionality as a MiSter FPGA, this is doing the exact same thing as the DE10 Nano from Terasic. It's doing the exact same thing from Taki Udon's clone standpoint with MiSter Pi. But like I said when I initially talked about this, having no I/O board and no USB hub available, sure you could play it like this, but it really wasn't going to be a very user-friendly experience for a lot of people. I would say it was definitely more for the modifying hobbyist, something that you would want to definitely set up and break down per use because you really didn't even have a case for it. But that has completely changed because like I said, I did the video and Antonio Valena's new combo board and case wrap this thing up in a nice little package, give you every single input you could possibly want, and let you interact with the QMTech board just like you would a triple stack in something like Mr. Addons aluminum case. And that's always nice, having a second source for clone boards. And now I don't have any evidence to support this. I'm assuming you'll probably see at least one more clone board manufacturer pop up in 2025 because MiSter FPGA just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and more people are going to want a piece of the pie, pun very much intended for the MiSter Pi. And honestly, assembling this thing was very easy. If you can put together Lego, you can put together this board. And last time I said Lego's not Lego, and people did correct me. I do remember that, but honestly, the Lego company fights with my brain. I want to say Legos all day long, so if I do it again, you'll just have to forgive me in that respect. But honestly, Antonio Valena totally nailed it, making the QMTech clone what I would consider usable. stable. Yes, it functioned before. Yes, you could plug it in, get a controller in with a USB OTG adapter, but it really was the type of thing. It was a project hobbyist board that had no case and would just sit on a table and would be very difficult to use in the long term, and I was worried that new users who weren't used to handling bare PCBs might do something wrong just by handling it. But now you get a case along with that I/O and USB hub set, so you can button up the entire QMTech board into this MiSter X case right here, and everything just works. So this is a secondary option on the clone space if Taki Udon's MiSter Pi just isn't available and you want to jump in, because you go from a case that looks so nice like this with nice rubber feet, completely protected, and you can put it on your TV stand and forget about it. That is a very nice quality, versus this, which I had it set up for the initial review, and that's something I really would have recommended many people play MiSter FPGA in this manner. So it's great to get all of these improvements on the QMTech clone side, and if there's more boards made for this from different vendors, if they want to send them along, I'll definitely do a video on that as well. But honestly, this new combo I/O and USB hub take the QMTech into the realm of 100% usability for everyone. But that's your MiSter FPGA 2024 hardware guide. We have a lot more options on the store shelves this year, even if those store shelves are completely virtual. You got the new MiSter Pi from Taki Udon, you got the QMTech clones, you have stuff like the marsupial multi-system, you have your traditional triple stack in the aluminum case, you have Mr. Addons' new IO Direct as well as Analog Pro boards, and you have a new MiStercade version 2 giving you better capabilities in your arcade cabinet. Honestly, the MiSter hardware ecosystem has expanded greatly in 2024, so I wanted to do this video towards the end of the year, so if you're thinking about buying yourself one for Christmas when that comes along, or a friend, you'll know what to pick. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'll try to answer each and every one of them, but trust me, the only wrong way to play MiSter FPGA is not to play it. See you guys next time. Bye bye.